we have the lab guides using which you will be recreating the same thing, the customer model and all the other associated tables. So after every module, there are lab guides that needs to be done. So we have a lab guide separately for the Informatica Hub part. Then there is a lab guide for IDD, Informatica Data Director. Then there is a separate lab guide for Hierarchy Manager, and for the SIF, that is the Service Integration Framework. We are covering all the things under. We have around 14 modules which cover all the scenarios, all the aspects of the MDM. And the course duration, it takes around 4 weeks of time, around nearly about 30 hours, you can say. Might be a little bit less or a little bit more. And daily, like, we take 1 hour class 5 days a week. So it is usually like Monday to Friday Indian timings in the morning. So today we'll be discussing about this introduction part, which will take around 1.5 hours for completing it. And this is for the theoretical part, so as of now there is no practical here. And from the module 2 only, basically the practical thing will start. So usually, like, I do all the practical, I will be creating all the things, like creating the tables, relationships, lookups, or whatever are there. I will show you practically before you can go and work on the labs. And regarding the access, MDM will be set up on your local machines. So VPN will be set up so that you can access the remote server directly in your local and you can work on it. So you don't need any installation at your side. Just if you have like SQL developer or code for looking into the data. And Java version like 1.7 is there, that is good. Otherwise, if it is not there, that will be installed in your system. So only these two things are required. Otherwise, nothing is required. So I'll be starting the introduction part, and if you have any questions in between, let me know. So first of all, like, before starting, like, I would like to say that MDM basically deals with the non-transactional data. So it doesn't deal with the transactional data that we have in the system. It is getting data from the online system only. But the data that is dealing with basically non-transactional. Can you please mute it? Yeah, thanks. So MDM basically deals with the non-transactional data that we have in the system, and most of the things is like the customer model. The main thing that is mastered is the customer data, organization data. Can please everyone go on mute? Hi Mohan, can you please mute yourself? Thanks. So main things that are modeled is basically the customer data, organization data, product data, policy data, address data, which are the main business data. So data, as you know, is very critical for any business organization. And the problem is that every company has huge data. Even bigger companies has huge data in millions. So when the people deal with data, they faces like a lot of issues with the data. First thing is like data is not stored at a central location. So data is basically stored at a different locations altogether. So for example, like if you take a scenario where we in one region, basically suppose it started on the eastern region, and at that time it was using some application, it was using a particular database. Next, like it started its operation in some other region like western region, and in that he is using some different application, because probably when they started they found that there are some new applications which has come up and it looks more better. So they are using some different application which might be using some different architecture altogether. The database might be different, the architecture of both might be different. And similarly, in the other regions, if it opens, they are using might be using some same applications or different applications, but there is no communication between them. They might all of them are maintaining separately the data. So there might be some person like who is residing on the eastern region and he has registered with the same company, and he has moved next on the western side and there also he registered with the company. So there is no point of knowing like that this person exists in both the places, because there is no communication between both the systems, so that they know that this person is already registered in the eastern side and now he is again registered in the other side, that is the western side. So data is not stored at a central location. Similarly, if we say like a company, insurance company is there, which is like having many businesses like medical insurance, health insurance, vehicle insurance, or house insurance. Different types of insurances are maintained by them. So if, for example, the company started with a house insurance and later on they expanded it, they say that they are expanding it and they are also coming into the medical business or health insurance or vehicle insurance. So different type of insurance they are covering, but for all of them they are having separate database where they are maintaining, like health insurance is maintained separately, the house insurance is maintained separately, vehicle is maintained separately. So at a later point of time the company says that I want to know like my customers who has purchased the policies across the system. So in this case it becomes very difficult because data is not the same. The third point is data keeps on changing. Like for example, if you are living on a rented house, we might change our house every 2 to 3 years. Wherever now we feel important, for example bank, we know like updating an address in a bank is important, so we'll go and update the address in a bank. But if you are using any postpaid connection, mobile postpaid connection, and if you are changing your address, you will not go and tell your the communication company that I have changed my address, because it is not required. Also I can log into the online portal, I can see my balance and I can pay the money. So the data gets outdated there. Your address is not correct, you have changed your address. Probably you might be changing the email ID or the mobile phones also, numbers. So the data doesn't get updated, so because of that the data gets outdated, or that is the incorrect data. The other problem that we see is data entry errors. Whatever you give on the forms and whatever is typed is maybe different, it is not exactly the same. So because of all these issues, at a later point of time, when we try to consolidate the records, it is very difficult to identify that these two persons which exist in different systems are actually the same person or he is a different person. If we are talking about these are the very legacy systems or old systems, there we didn't had anything as such. Like for example, we didn't had nowadays like PAN card number, passport number, or SSN number, using which we can easily clearly identify that okay, this is the person using like PAN card number or passport number, that he has purchased the policies across the system. So we didn't have any identifying key using which we can figure out that this is the same person. Then we can take an action forward that okay, using this number or this is my primary key, using primary key, when I searched across the system, I get that this person exists in these systems. So that I don't have. So I just have the names and the addresses, and based on the names of the addresses, I need to identify that this is the same person. So previously, like what was happening when like MDM was not there in the picture, usually we were using the ETL process to load the direct data directly from the source system, pulling the data from the source system and loading that directly into the data warehouses. But now MDM has come into the middle layer between the ETL and the data warehouses or the downstream systems. Because previously, like data was getting pulled from the upstream systems and it was passed to the downstream systems. But at that time, we didn't knew that these persons are whether the same person or they are different person. Because maximum what we can do, maximum we can make everything in uppercase, we can do in lowercase, and we can try to match the data. But data is not same, exactly the same. So even if we make everything in uppercase or lowercase and try to match the data, it will not match. So that is the problem. So using that, we cannot identify that this is the same person. So duplicate records exist in the downstream systems. So now using MDM, what we are doing is we are taking the data from all those systems, distinct systems. We are trying to consolidate the data and create a master record. So in MDM, like we have the fuzzy logic using which is like a probabilistic matches, which tries to identify, like there are a lot of settings that we have to do. Based on all those settings, it will try to identify that even if there are differences in the data, it will try to identify that these persons look similar. And after that, the data stewards are there or the business analysts are there who can look into that, and if they feel that yes, these all looks similar person or they are same person, they can merge the record. Similarly, like one more example like we can take is like the credit cards. Like every one of you might be getting a lot of calls for the credit cards. So usually, like what happens, a company wants to sell its credit card, they will have like 3 to 4 vendors will be there. They will give the task to all those vendors. So they get the data from different sources, third-party applications. So it is the possibility, like for example, a company gave this task to some 5 different companies, and somehow all of them got your number. So everyone is calling you for the same thing to get the card, whether you are interested in getting the card or not. So they called you, they got your information. So what you told, what they have entered here, probably we might not be telling correctly also. So what isn't we have told, what they have entered might be completely different. So at a later point of time, like the company says that okay, I want to see how many customers they have called. So initially, like all the company will submit the data. So it's like 5, they have called 5 people. But it is not 5 people, it is exactly the same person to whom all the companies have called for the card. So like that, this is duplicate data. So we need to identify those duplicate data, merge it, and create a single record or a consolidated record which we can trust upon. So in Informatica MDM terms, we say as a BBT record or the best version of truth across the enterprise. So that's a short term here that is called the BBT, which say in small terms, or is called the best version of truth. So we can refer them as like unique record, golden record, or a BBT record. So that is the main purpose of MDM. The MDM solution is to take the data from disparate systems, try to consolidate it, and create a master record which can be trusted upon. So now once like everything is consolidated, we know that based on whatever data we have, we cannot say that data is correct, but whatever data we have in the system, all the systems, I am taking only that data and trying to consolidate it. And with that, I am saying that okay, this is whatever data I have from all these systems, this first name or the last name or the address looks more better. So using that, I will be creating my master record. So now I know that yes, whatever data I have can be trusted upon. So there is a similar example here, like for example, product data. is maintained or the customer data is maintained across this disparate system. And on the top we have these applications which want to access the product data or the customer data. So if they access the data directly, they will get a different view of the data because it might not be exactly the same. We might see some different names, some different addresses of the customers, or different phone numbers, or different email IDs. So what we are doing, we are taking the data from all these downstream systems, consolidating it, creating a master record, and anyone who wants to access the MDM data or the data, basically we can say that we have created a central repository. You can hit that central repository and get access to the data. So at least there will be a consistent view of the data. So we'll see like one scenario of such data. It is like we can say still not a bad data, but still in that data there is some differences. So for example, like here we have taken 3 systems like Salesforce system, account systems, and marketing system. So in this system, they all have their primary keys. Like a Salesforce has their SFA ID, account customer ID, and marketing is having their target ID. So they all of them are maintaining their own primary keys, which is usually there in all the systems. Most of them maintain a primary key, unless there is like a file-based system where we are storing the data in a CSV file format. Then only probably will not go for any like unique key or the primary key. So in this system, like suppose we have load. First, what we do is we load the data from all these systems into the MDM. So after loading this, suppose first we'll see the difference, then we'll talk about that. So as of now, if you see the data, you'll see some differences are there. Differences are there based on the first middle name column. If you see the middle name, for like marketing it is N, for accounts it is null, and for the Salesforce it is null value. And similarly, if you check the address, in the address side, we have for the marketing, it's a completely different address. And for the accounts and the Salesforce, there is a small difference. If you see, E is there in the Salesforce and accounts E is not there. So there is a small difference here which is present. So now what we have to do is, we have loaded this data and suppose we have run the match rules. We have created a match rule based on certain columns like first name, middle name, last name, and the address column, using which MDM has identified that these 3 are duplicate records. So if they are duplicate records, I need to merge all these duplicate records to create a master record. So now like we'll see like how do we do that. So now this is the same thing. I think now this is the same thing that we had seen in the previous slide here. That we had these 3 systems and which are giving us duplicate record, and we want to consolidate and create a master record. So now if you say as a developer or an analyst also, if you are working, we don't know about the data, because for us like everything is a correct, whatever comes I can insert it, because I don't know data, what is correct data. So how do we decide that which data is the correct data and promote that into the master record? So I am creating a master record on the top. Now how do I know that which value should I take? As of now, like the data is nearly similar, so it's fine, but we should be knowing that data from which source should I take. for which data is correct from each and every system. So now here in MDM we have a feature which is called as a trust. So trust has to be implemented on all the columns for which we are getting data from more than one system. So as of now, like in this slide, like we have all the columns that we are getting from every system. For every system, like first name, middle name, last name, or the address column, I am getting data from more than one system. So in this case, it is obvious to use a trust, because I don't know which system to trust upon. So I will use the trust feature. But if you say that for a particular column, I am getting data only from one system, in that case, you don't need any trust, because it is coming only from one system. So whatever is coming, just take it and insert into the master record. So now the business owners will be there, like these three systems we are mentioning here: Salesforce, accounts, and marketing. So we will be giving this like to the owners, like the business owners will be there, to whom they will tell that, see, for these columns I am getting data from these systems. So we might have multiple systems, so we can just prepare a report and we can say that the first name I am getting from 2 systems, the other column I am getting for 3 systems. So that report we can prepare and share with the data stewards, and then we have to ask them to come up with a trust. So what they do is, the data owners of all the systems sit together, they analyze a sample subset of data. So they will take some sample data from each of the systems, and they will try to analyze that data from which system looks more better or more accurate. So obviously, like there are millions of records in the system. We cannot go and look into all the millions of records. So they just take a subset of data. They might be taking multiple times and comparing that for which system which record looks more better. So suppose that the business says that for these columns, like we have here these columns here, suppose the address columns. So for the last name and the address column, for these columns you can trust the Salesforce system, and for the first name and the middle name, they are saying that you can trust the middle name, this marketing system. So after looking into all the things, they have come up with this picture. Like after looking into data, they are saying that for last name and the address column, you can trust Salesforce system. For marketing, you can trust, for first name and the middle name, you can trust the marketing system. So now what we have to do here? So now I have to put some numbers here. That is called as a trust number. So business has told us this picture that for last name you can trust Salesforce. Probably second they might have told accounts, then the marketing. So they need to tell us the order basically. So based on that order, suppose business, I have given these numbers. So for example, I will give numbers like for Salesforce 90, for accounts suppose I gave 80 here, and for marketing I am giving a score of 70. For these columns, last name, address, city, state, and zip. Similarly, business has told like for the first name and the middle name you can trust the marketing system. So for these columns I am giving trust score in reverse number. So I am giving 90 as for the marketing, accounts I am giving 80, and for the Salesforce I am giving the value of 70. So whatever like values I have given is basically based on column level. So for each and every column you need to give these values, and it's not a fixed number obviously, because if you say that for last number I want to give 90, 80, 70, for address I want to give some other value like 70, 60, 50, yes, you can give it. That's not a problem here. Any number you can give, that is on you, what number you want to give. You can give any number between 0 to 100, but we try to keep it consistent. because at least we will know that, okay, whatever is the highest trusted system, I have given a trusted score of 90. The second trusted system I have given an 80. The third I have given a 70. That is just for our purpose. It is for us also, like we know that these are the numbers I have given. Otherwise, every time if someone asks, we need to go look into the design document, and then we can know that, okay, what are the numbers we have given here. So just for consistency purpose, we give the same numbers. So now when I ran the match process, MDM told that these all are duplicate records and they need to be merged. So because for the last name and the address column, Salesforce system is more trusted. So everything from the Salesforce has been promoted into the master record. Now for the first name and the middle name. For the first name and the middle name, I have given marketing as the highest system, as value as 90. So I expect that the first name and the middle name from marketing system should get promoted into the master record. So the first name has been promoted into the master record, but middle name has been promoted from the account system. So how that happened here basically? So this is like trust that we have implemented, that based on the business recommendation. Previously the business were not giving the numbers because they were not clear about the trust. Nowadays the business itself gives these numbers. So if the business is giving you the numbers, it is very good. If the business is not giving you the numbers, you can put your own numbers, show it to the business and get a sign off from them that these are the numbers we have put or we are going to use for the trust. So now with the trust, we have one more concept which is called as the validation rule. So why do we need to use a validation rule here? We need to use a validation rule here because based on looking the sample data, when I looked into the sample data, I found that the middle name for marketing is looking more trusted. But there might be possibility that middle name value comes as null. So how can you know that middle name can come as null? That you can know by looking at the source data, how the source is inserting the data. Like if you look into the forms, basically you will know that when the source is inserting the data, whether they have any check for first name, whether they have any check for last name or not. Probably it might be a nullable column in their system. So there is a possibility that probably as of now it looks fine, but at a later point of time there is a possibility that I might be getting null value for the first name or the last name. Similarly, the business might say that usually like for the middle name, for example, mostly the middle name is null or people write a single character for the middle name. So business might say that if you are getting more than one character for the middle name, trust that system more. So on the down, if you say I just put a condition here, if the middle name is null or middle name is less than 2 characters, then downgrade the middle name by 50%. So this is what validation rule does. Validation rule will check the different conditions, and based on those conditions, or if the conditions are not met, we can downgrade the trust. Basically, why you want to downgrade the trust? We have given these numbers based on the business itself, because business has told us that for the first name and the middle name you can trust marketing system. So why I want to downgrade it? I want to downgrade it because I want the correct value to get promoted into the master record, because there might be a possibility that next time the middle name is coming as null from marketing, but account and Salesforce are having some values. In this case, null value will get promoted into the master record because I have given a trust score of 90 for the marketing system. So at a later point of time, if I get a null value will get promoted into the base object. Even if in the accounts and the market Salesforce, I have a value for the middle name. So we want the correct record to be get inserted into the tables or the master record. So that is the reason for using this validation rule. So now what will happen here? So here, first of all, like based on this condition, middle name is null or middle name is less than 2 character. So yes, for marketing system, the middle name is less than 2 character. So what I am doing is I am downgrading the trust by 50%. So this will get reduced from 90, it will go down to 45. For accounts, there is no reduction because neither the middle name is null nor it is like less than 2 characters. So the trust is still 80. And again, here for the Salesforce, we have null in the middle name. So again here we will have like trust score of 35. It will again go down by 50% because that is what I have given here. Go down by 50%. So that is the reason why the middle name from accounts has been promoted into the master record. Any questions you have on this trust and validation rules? Okay, so we'll proceed next. So this is like one of the scenarios using which like when we try to merge the records in MDM, this trust and validations are calculated. There are some other factors also which we'll look into later, because you might say that what will happen in case the trust scores are same. So as of now we will not be discussing that part, because for that we need to know some other concepts as well, then only it is good to discuss that. So next is the architecture of the MDM. So the architecture is like the 3-tier architecture. On the top we have this UI client that we call as a hub server or a hub console, and then we have the application server in middle, and then we have the database server. So the UI client basically is constraint of these workbenches or tools. We say that, like for example, the data steward console, which is basically for the data steward, where he can log in and do some data manipulation activities like creating a record, updating a record, merging or unmerging the records. Admin console in MDM, like admin is not very vast. Like if you have worked on the power center or the side, we have a separate admin required which does the administrative work. But in MDM, like admin is not much, it's very limited. It's just like create installation of the MDM and applying the hotfix or the EBFs. So usually like as a developer can do all these things, or usually like in some companies, like if they have some power center administrators, so they only like can work on installation of the MDM and upgrading the patches or the hotfixes. And similarly the design console, where we actually go and do all the development activities, creating the tables, the relationship lookups, match and merge, mappings, all these things are done in the design part. And then we have the hierarchy manager console. Hierarchy manager is basically used by the top level people like the sales people and higher level management people who wants to view the data on a high level in the sense, like for example, once they open an organization record, they want to see like how many products are getting manufactured in that organization. So that they just want a high level view, so it just shows them in a tree format or a binary tree structure. So if they want to see that in a graphical format, they can see that, because they are not bothered much about the column level details, because in your organization table or in your product table there might be 50 or 100 columns. So they are not bothered about the column level, what data is stored in the column, just a high level they want information. So for that reason we implement hierarchy manager in MDM. The middle layer is basically the application server. So application server, basically in MDM we don't have any inbuilt application server. So all are external application server, and MDM supports only 3 application server, which is like JBoss, WebLogic and WebSphere. 3 application servers are supported as of now, and in which the most popular is the JBoss one. In all the implementations that I worked on, most of the places it was JBoss, and in one of the places it was like WebLogic. So 3 application servers are there, and which has to be purchased separately and installed. And similarly the database. So MDM again supports 3 databases, which is Oracle, DB2 and SQL Server. So supporting in the sense like it can be installed only on these 3 as of now. If you have any Oracle database, DB2 or SQL Server, then only you can install MDM. So 3 databases and 3 application servers are supported by the MDM as of now. So we will look more details about this in the next slides. How the application server or how the database server basically process the request. So this is an application server architecture. In the application server architecture, like on the top we have external clients or the external applications. So external client for external application is basically the IDD application. IDD is the Informatica Data Director application that comes with the MDM, and that is the application which is used by everyone to view the data in MDM or manipulate the data in MDM. So we have MDM Hub console is there, that is basically used by the developers for development purpose and the loading data and all the things. And when it comes to viewing the data or manipulating the data, we use the IDD application, that is Informatica Data Director application. So in the Informatica Data Director, we usually create the users, like different types of users who will be accessing the MDM. We create the users, we create different types of roles, like a data steward role, data manager role, senior manager role, or any other role we can create depending on the business, because business will tell us what are the different types of roles they want, or read-only roles, and we will create those roles and we will assign the users to them. So based on the access that we have provided, whenever a user logs in using the IDD application, he will be able to perform those activities. So whenever like user fires any update request, for example, it will come and check the access in the database whether he is having access on the server to update the request or not. If he doesn't have access to update some particular column and he is trying to update it, an error message will be returned to the user. But if he is having access on that, then in that case it is passed to this master reference server. So these all are basically inbuilt into the application layer itself. So master reference server, what it does is basically is like a load distributor. So 1 minute, let me open it. Hi Shinji, can you please mute yourself? Background voice is coming. So this is the normal, like for example, I have this example here. For example, I have MDM installed on this server. So I have one IP, means on one first server we have installed the JBoss, and we have installed MDM Hub server and the process server. So Hub server is the UI part and process server is basically the application server. and we will have the database installed on a separate system. So usually this is in the development environment. Usually we have this scenario: one MDM installed on only one system, and it communicates with the database which is on the other system. But if usually in the production environment, we usually have like MDM installed on two separate servers. So like MDM installed on this IP also and on the second IP also, and both of them will be communicating or referring to the same database. So whenever a request comes basically to the MRM server or this load balancer that we just discussed to the master reference server, it knows that there are two servers which are running for the MDM. So based on that, it will now next check what is the load on them, and based on the load, either it will pass the request to any one of the servers, because two servers are running. If only one server is running, then there is no problem, everything is getting diverted to that server. But in case there are two servers which are running for MDM, it knows that there are two servers which are running, and it will pass the request to those servers depending on the load. So these clean servers or the process servers that we have, these communicate with the database, they process the request, and they will return back to the users or the external application. So in this, basically all the APIs are fired. Like some of the APIs are mentioned on the left hand side, like cleanse, match, put, update, or some other relationships. So these are the some of the APIs which are mentioned. So they all of them gets fired automatically. We don't have to do anything for that. Whenever we create any request, update, or delete, these APIs are fired automatically. But there is also other way using which you can do it. Suppose you say that other options are a Java program. You can write a Java program, or you can use a SOAP UI, which is a free tool which is available. And using a SOAP UI also, you can insert a record, update a record, or delete a record. So you can fire all the APIs externally. So these are the communication protocols like web services, which is used by the SOAP UI, messaging queues, or the EJB. Using all these three things, we can communicate to the MDM externally. So for that, we can have a Java program and a SOAP UI. So that is also covered as a part of the training, working with the SOAP UI and working with the Java side. That in case you have to do something, usually it is not required. The SOAP UI, at least it is required, because SOAP UI is used by the testing team to fire the APIs, usually running the batch jobs and other things. We are covering the Java side also. It is not mandatory to have a Java knowledge, but it is just you should know the APIs. If you want to fire, you can fire those APIs using the Java. So that's basically how the application server works. And similarly, the database. Database, like in Oracle side, as you know, like you have users, different users like sys and system users are there, which maintains the information about all the other schemas or the users we create in the Oracle. So similar concept is in here also, Informatica or MDM. So once you have installed the Oracle, you will go and install the MDM database. So in MDM database also we have two things. First is the system schema, and the other is basically the ORS schema. So in MDM, like whatever schema or user you create in the Oracle, we refer them as an ORS. That's a common term which is used. And ORS is basically refers to operational research store. So whenever we create any schema, we say that we have created a new ORS. So that's a common term which is used. So we don't use like schema or a user, we just say that we have created a new ORS. So the system schema like maintains some of the information which are listed here, like ORS connection information, how to connect to this ORS. So basically the database connection information, the port information, the database SID and all the details. User ORS permission, whether which user is having access to work on which ORS. Those permissions User tools permissions. So like some of the tools we saw, data store tool or the designer tool, hierarchy manager tool. So if the users, whatever access that we have given to the users, those things will be maintained, and the user definitions, like what are the users we are creating for accessing the MDM or the IDD application, those will be listed here. And similarly, the ORS schema is there, which is the main part. So whenever you go and create any ORS schema with this, like a lot of repository tables will get created. Some 80 to 100 repository tables will get created. So those repository tables will contain like for everything that we do, for example, like creating a table, creating a column, or creating a match rule sets, or whatever like configuration or metadata changes we do from the MDM, for everything there is a separate table where all these informations get stored. So we should be knowing about the repository tables here, but not, we don't need to know about all the tables, but yes, some 15 to 20 tables are there, which we should know, like what are the tables, what data it contains, and how the data is getting changed or manipulated in those repository tables. So, and once we have done with that, we can basically data and the metadata both are present in the same location. They are not stored differently. In the same ORS, all the metadata will be there and also the data will be there. And now next is the main part, which is the flow part, that how the data is coming into the MDM and how it is getting consumed by the downstream systems. So here we have, in this slide, we have taken two sources, like source 1 and the source 2, from which we are getting the data. So source 1, like for example, we are using Oracle for the MDM. Then this source can be any other source. It can be a DB2, SQL Server, Salesforce, or Teradata. It can be anything, or a file-based system. So pulling the data from this source system and loading that into the MDM landing table is an external process. So most of the time, like it is not like fixed, like you have to use any like Power Center to use it. You can, like if the company have there any internal tools which can do the same thing, they can use that. But most of the companies use Power Center only, where they will have this source 1 as a source and MDM landing table as the target. So they will pull all the data from source 1 and load that into the MDM landing tables. The only thing is that there is no transformations between them. So even if we are using the Power Center, we are just pulling the data from the source and just loading that into the MDM landing tables. So in the mapping transformations will be there, that's just a one-to-one mapping without any change. So landing table is basically created from the MDM. So in MDM we don't import any table. We go into the MDM UI, create a table. And if I create a table, it also creates in the backend, ORS. So there is no importing feature here. Import we can do, but that is a different thing which we'll discuss later. In MDM we create the tables and automatically everything is created at the backend. So usually we don't need to go to the backend and touch anything. If you want to create any table, you want to delete any table, you want to add any columns, remove any columns, you have to do everything from the MDM file itself. You don't need to go to backend to do any of the activities. So this landing table that we are creating from the MDM side has like no constraints. All the columns are nullable columns. There is no primary key, unique key, or nullable column. Sorry, not null column. So this is because we want to load all the data that is coming from a source into our landing table, because there might be possibility that there might be some duplicate records or some issues might be there with the data. So that is fine. first load everything into the landing table and let MDM identify that this is a duplicate record. So that is why this column there is no constraints. Everything is a nullable column. So that's the first process. Once the data is loaded into the landing table, then only we start the processing. We start processing the data.
So one question.
Yes, still.
Landing tables and staging tables are created by us or MDM creates it?
No, we will be going and creating the tables from the MDM, and in the backend it gets created automatically.
Okay, can you come again? It's not, audio is not clear.
Okay, say this is the MDM UI. So in this MDM UI, we have this landing table that we are just discussing. So I come here to this landing table and do a right click, add item, and create a landing table. So if I create a landing table here, this table gets created in the backend Oracle also.
Okay.
So that's why I was telling that we don't have to go to the backend or do anything. Everything can be done from the UI itself. So that is basically the first table, which is the landing table, and once the data is there in the landing table, then only we start the processing. So the next process is basically the stage process. So the next process, or we can say after the landing is done, the first process here in MDM is the stage process. So stage process, what it does is it pulls the data from the landing